Hey, this is Kurt again. This time we're actually going to be talking about discovering issues with valves, how to diagnose them, and then how to fix them. So today I've got a couple of things set up so that we can look at some valves, and so let's get this done. Let's get this started. I figured some of the easiest ways that we can show you stuff is even showing you my own design. I installed my own sprinkler system, and so this one, it may not look exactly like yours, but it's very similar in its functionality. Here I've got 4 valves. I have 3 for the backyard, and then I have 1 even for my garden, which is just this drip valve. In the back here, as you can see, is the manifold. That's where it supplies the main line to the water. Each one of these valves is designated to one specific area in your yard, and then will turn on. When you turn on your water and you have a valve that just automatically kicks on, there's a couple of reasons why it may do that. First one is going to be this small bleeder valve here on the side. Now the bleeder valve on a valve is mainly just to bleed out air. That is its sole purpose. That's the only reason it's even on there, is just to let out air so that, you know, the whole line is solid with water. If your bleeder valve is open, all you need to do is just turn it to the right to close it. You know, this one, obviously you can't see it. I don't have water activated right now, but if I just turn that to the right, make sure it's all the way closed, then I know I'm okay. This middle section is the flow control, and just adjust the valve's pressure. You can screw that down a little bit more to kind of reduce water flow going through your valve. On top is also your solenoid. This solenoid is what activates the valve electronically from your sprinkler timer, but it has a little handle on it. This is also one where you can activate your valve. If I turn this handle just a quarter of a turn, that valve will now activate. So you want to make sure if your valves are kicked on immediately, just right when you turn on your water, is 1, come check your solenoid, make sure it's off. Make sure your bleeder valve is closed if it does have one. If the valve is still active, it is still watering, even after you've given it a few seconds after that, you may have an issue inside the valve, and I'm going to show you how to do that with a setup I have here at the table. Okay, as I've got set up on this table, I also have one kind of set up. This is one I just pieced together real quick of PVC. This is kind of the same thing, the manifold feeding two different valves. I brought a Hunter valve, and then I also brought a Rainbird valve, just so that you guys can see the two differences. Like I said, this one, the Hunter valve, still has the bleeder valve, flow control, and then the solenoid, which will activate that valve electronically. Same rules apply. You twist that a little bit, and that can activate the valve, or you can even activate it from the bleeder valve. When I was discussing not being able to shut off a valve, obviously this is one you can see that all the screws are in place. Most technicians will then want to check inside that valve to see if there's something impeding, you know, the water flow on the inside, the reason why the gasket won't close, and that's what's going to cause that valve to continue watering. I've taken this valve and I've already removed all the screws. So if you have your valve, you've removed all the screws, you want to see if you have something inside that needs to be fixed. Okay, they're very simple in their mechanics. They have the top bonnet, which has got everything, all the other components attached. You have a spring, the gasket, and then just the bottom bowl. Okay, what's going to be happening is if you still have a valve that won't shut off, it's possible that you had debris flow through. It's now become lodged inside the valve. Maybe it's a rock, maybe it's a piece of garbage, who knows? And then it stops this gasket from sealing. It basically just causes it to stick up a little bit, which will make water flow through that valve. If you can remove the screws, take off the top bonnet, remove the gasket, remove any debris that's inside, and then all you have to do is just put it back exactly as it was. This one obviously has a specified way to go. Obviously with this gasket, you want to make sure that all of the holes line up. As you can see, it's got a couple on the top, and then the rest of them are just for the screw placement. This one is where the solenoid goes, and so we definitely want to make sure that you line those holes up. Okay, and that you put your top back on, obviously with the solenoid kind of in that same spot. Now, obviously in the ground is one thing and me doing it on a table is another. However, this does give you the correct view of how that should look. This will obviously seat together. Ooh, let's see if I can get it a little better. There we go. This will seat better like that, and then you put your screws all the way back in. Doing it inside the valve box, just be careful if it's full of water to just be cautious with your screws. Believe you me, I've lost plenty doing that. On to the next problem. Okay, when you do have your valve apart and you are looking inside to see if there's debris, I also wanted to mention to check the gasket and make sure that there are no breaks, tears, rips in that gasket. You can replace these. You can even, if you wanted to, replace the entire top and guts without even having to cut out the valve. You can buy everything. Also on the solenoid, you know, there's a gasket on here. Sometimes that can impede the valve to work properly and cause it to stick on. You can also replace these fairly easy. The last thing I wanted to mention was, if you have everything assembled back together, that if you are installing your valve, do make sure you pay attention to flow. There's arrows on these valves and they do show you which direction to put the water on. So if this is the manifold, this is mainline side, you obviously want it to go through the valve and then out to your heads. If you do put it on backwards, it will not work properly. The problems that you also may find with your valves is that you have water seeping out the side right where the gasket is. It can even be seeping out the edges of where your connections are. It can be on the back side of the main line, or it could be on the front once you activate the valve and water's flowing through it. It is possible to see if maybe it's just the screws becoming loose, to tighten these down to see if that stops the valve from seeping. On the other hand, if you have a leak or a break or something that's wrong with the valve, maybe even the valve itself is cracked, there are ways to fix this without having to cut out everything. In my experience, sometimes even cutting the connections where you just want to redo, you know, one section, it gives you almost no PVC to glue onto or to fix. In this case, sometimes what I like to do is I will still disassemble the valve, and I do that so that the top is not in my way. What I'm trying to get at is, you can replace these valves without cutting your main. I don't like to disturb the valve manifold if I don't have to. If it's a valve issue and the valve just needs to be replaced, I like to disassemble the valve, and then you're able to actually unscrew it off and then put your new one on, you know, using that same old fitting. Redo Teflon tape, screw your new valve on. Obviously, you're going to have to take apart the new valve too, because the base, it's not going to let you turn it. You know, you'll slam into other valves. So if you disassemble it, you can get your new base on, reassemble the valve, and then you will have to reattach the PVC on the other side. But fixing the lateral side is 10 times easier than having to redo an entire valve manifold. Forgive me for going a little bit back and forth, but I just wanted to show you the next issue is usually with something with the wiring. If a valve is not activating, you're at your sprinkler timer, you're trying to turn it on, valves won't kick on, the next thing I would do is to come and check your wires. Now the wiring, I don't want to complicate. I want this to be short, sweet, and to the point. All of your valves are going to have 2 wires to them. As you can see on this one, it's got, you know, 1, 2, right? All of the valves need to at least have 1 wire that all combines in the common wire, they call it, or the negative, the ground. Okay, then each valve is going to have its own specific singular power wire. That's usually how all valves are wired up. You will need to find out which is your ground. In your clock, it'll actually say ground wire and show you. In most instances, it is the color white, but not in all cases. Sometimes, you know, somebody will wire it up differently, which is totally fine. You can use whatever color. However, to be short, sweet, and to the point, white is usually the ground. You're going to have all, in my case, each one of these 4 valves is going to be in here with the ground. Each wire is going to come to a power wire, singular wire. I make sure that all of these connections are good. You know, that the copper is stripped, it's wired together properly, that all of my wire nuts are properly tight on all of these so that they're good. I recommend using grease-filled wire nuts. If you do not, If you use regular wire nuts, you're going to have that corrode, and in time they will fail on you for sure. Usually these grease-filled wire nuts are going to last quite a bit longer than regular ones, but sprinkler systems will always require some attention. You can pick up any of these wire nuts in your sprinkler stores, hardware stores, big box stores. That's pretty much it for valves. Hopefully this video helped you. I know I didn't cover everything, and perhaps there are some things that you may still have questions on. Please leave any kind of comments that you have. I would love to answer those questions and get back to you in another video. Again, this is Kurt. Thanks for watching.